Hey guys, it's KIRK coming at you with my week 4 picks for DraftKings this week. So my week 3 picks were for the most part a bust. Not many people would have expected Kelvin Benjamin and D'Angelo Williams and players like that to have as bad of games as they ended up having. So I'm sorry about that, but I definitely think my week 4 pick should have a bounce back week, and I think we're going to have a good week, guys. So before we get started, make sure you guys look down in the description below and follow me on Twitter to see updates about my lineups that I will be tweeting out. In case any injuries happen or there's some players that I think you guys should put in your lineups last minute, I'll be tweeting about that, so be sure to follow me on Twitter and check that out. So hopping on into the quarterbacks for week 1, I think good value pick this week is going to be Kirk Cousins at only $6,500. He's not super cheap, but averaging 19 points per game is not too bad. He is at home against Cleveland, who has just been terrible against the pass this season, and I could definitely see him getting about 300 yards and 3 touchdowns even. So I think he's going to be a good pick, and I think there's a couple stacks that you could definitely have with him. A safe player, which is typically pretty safe, is going to be Drew Brees, $7,600. He is the second highest priced quarterback, and he is the highest scoring quarterback this season so far also. So he's against a bad defense in San Diego, who it kind of looks like a must-win game for the Saints at this point. I mean, I know it's still early in the season, but having as bad a weeks as they've been having, I definitely think they need to have at least a win here. So I'll definitely expect him to get 300 yards and at least 2 touchdowns, if not 3 or 4. A good risk to take this week would be Trevor Siemian. His price is only $5,400, which is very cheap for a QB. He's coming off of a huge week versus the Bengals where he scored like 32 points or something. His ownership may go up because of that, but I don't think too many people are going to hop on the Siemian train right about now. But he has potential to have a similar week this week against the Tampa Bay defense, who has just not been that great either. Moving on over to the running backs, a good value pick is going to be LeGarrette Blount. He's going to be very chalky this week, though, which is the one bad thing about him. But his price is only $5,000, and he's at home against Buffalo, who gave up 3 touchdowns to Matt Forte. If Edelman ends up playing quarterback, or if Jacoby Brissett ends up playing quarterback, either way, the run game is going to be the most dominating part of their offense. So I think LeGarrette Blount's definitely a good pick. And at 20 points per game he's been averaging, and only $5,000 as his price, I think he's definitely a great player for you guys to take. A good safe play this week would be Melvin Gordon. He also is going to be very chalky, but his price is $6,300, which is not too expensive for a safe pick. After how the Saints played on Monday night against the Falcons, I definitely think Melvin Gordon would be a good pick. The Falcons running backs absolutely dominated them, and each had about 30 points between 2 running backs. So that's about 60 points for 2 running backs. That's a lot. And being that Melvin Gordon is going to be controlling a lot more carries than those 2 are splitting, I think he could easily break into the 30s as well. A risky play this week is going to be Le'Veon Bell. The only reason why I put him at a risk is because his ownership is going to be pretty high this week. But his price is $7,500, and I do expect his ownership to be high because he's coming off of his suspension. A lot of people like him, and after this week, if he does have a good week, his price is going to end up going up even more. He is the second highest price running back already, but Kansas City's averaged 123 yards per game against them rushing this season so far. So Le'Veon Bell could end up being a very good pick. He has high upside, and he's also really good for PPR as he does get a lot of receptions during his games. Moving on over to the wide receivers for week 4. 2 very chalky plays right here. We have the value player of Terrelle Pryor. His price is only $4,300. He had 35 points last game. His ownership's definitely going to go up from that. I do think this is probably going to be the last really good week to take him before Josh Gordon ends up coming back in week 5 next week. Another good thing about Terrelle Pryor is he does run the ball, he passes the ball, and he gets receptions. So all around, he's going to get you points in every aspect of the offense. So he could end up being a good player if you guys want to take him for cash games. A safe play that I also recommend mostly for cash games is going to be Marvin Jones. Price is only $7,300, which is not too expensive for the productivity that he put out last week. So he had 41 points in his last game. His ownership is definitely going to go up a lot from that as well. He's going to get a lot of receptions and points once again. He's up against Chicago, who is a pretty bad defense. And I think he's going to be safe for cash games, but I'm not going to be playing him too much in GPP lineups. My risky play this week is going to be Terrell Williams. His price is $4,400. He's against the New Orleans defense, who could be pretty bad against the receivers. And I think any receiver from the Chargers is going to have pretty much a field day. One thing to note is that in the Monday night game, the New Orleans Saints did kind of shut down Julio Jones. He only had 1 catch because they were double covering him most of the game. So if they do decide to double cover Travis Benjamin, I know they're kind of different players. Julio Jones is a big guy who's just going to stand there and try to catch the ball over receivers, and Travis Benjamin is this little speedy guy. But if they do try to do that, I think Terrell Williams is going to be a good pick. He should have about 8 to 10 catches, so if he does do that, I think he could have around 150 yards and maybe a touchdown or two as well. Moving on over to the tight ends, value pick that's going to be pretty chalky this week is going to be Zach Miller. His price is $2,700, but he did put up 28 points in his last game. He's at home against the Lions, so I think it's going to be a pretty good pick just because of that. And the Lions as well did give up 2 touchdowns in week 1 to the Colts, so I think any tight end really against the Lions at this point is going to be a pretty good pick. And Zach Miller definitely had a pretty good week last week, so he could be a good one again this week. A safe play that I really don't mind too much is going to be Jordan Reed. A lot of people don't really like paying up too much for tight ends, and the good thing about Jordan Reed is even though his price is $6,300, he's almost like an elite wide receiver as well. And at $6,300 for a wide receiver, you're not going to be able to get a player that's going to put out as much as Jordan Reed should in this game. He's against Cleveland at home, which should be a pretty high score for the Redskins, at least for their offense. And I think he'll have around 25 points, and I think that's definitely going to be worth it for the price of only $6,300. My risky play this week is going to be Cameron Brate. His price is $2,800. He had a huge game last week, putting up about 22 points. He is now the starter as Austin Safarian-Jenkins was cut because of a DUI, I believe. But he's against the Denver defense, who is really good against the pass rush, and are really good with their pass rush, and they're going to put a lot of pressure on Jameis Winston. So he's definitely a risk to take. But if Jameis Winston starts to dump the ball off, I think Cameron Brate could get a good amount of receptions, as well as maybe even a touchdown. So moving on to my last couple options, or flex position kind of players. A good option at QB this week I think is going to be Big Ben. His price is $7,100, so he's a little bit more expensive. But they definitely need a bounce back week, the entire Steelers offense for that matter. He has Le'Veon Bell back, who is going to be helping him in the passing game and the running game to open up the passing game. He's against the Kansas City defense, who's only had 3 sacks this season, so leaving time for quarterbacks to stay in the pocket, and I think Big Ben, whenever he has time in the pocket, he's definitely going to end up putting up some good points and numbers. So he is a risky play, but it is kind of a must-win game for the Steelers at this point. Even though they are 2-1, they need to stay near the top and not let the Ravens take any kind of big lead in the AFC North. One more thing to note, he has Antonio Brown. Moving on over to my running back option this week, we're going to have Jordan Howard. His price is only $3,700, which is extremely cheap. He's probably going to be the highest owned running back this week, in all honesty. But he's going to see a much bigger role this week with Langford being injured. I don't really recommend him in too many GPP lineups because he is going to be very highly owned. He is at home against the Lions, so I think that Chicago should be able to put up some numbers this game. I think overall that game is going to be pretty high scoring. And Jordan Howard also helps with PPR because he does get a good amount of reception, so I think he's going to be a great pick this week. A wide receiver option is going to be Jamison Crowder. I think it could be a good stack to go with Cousins and Reed, maybe take all 3 of them in a stack. His price is only $4,200, so he's pretty cheap. He is the most targeted receiver on the Redskins as of right now, and he's very cheap with some pretty good upside. So if you guys decide to take Kirk Cousins, you may want to stack him with Jordan Reed and Jamison Crowder to try to have that 3-way stack that could end up going off for a big game. So that's going to be it for my Week 4 picks, guys. I really hope you enjoyed them. Please leave some comments down below if you guys agreed with any, or if I maybe didn't put some in here that you guys think are going to have some big games. And I'll definitely maybe put that in the description or something if I agree with some of those. But that's going to be it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please drop a like in this video. Let's try to hit 15 likes on it. That'd be insane. But once again, this has been your boy Corrupt. Thank you guys for tuning in, and see ya.